Why I became Muslim after visiting Palestine, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I want to share with you a deeply personal story, a journey that transformed my life in ways I never expected. This is not just about faith or religion. This is about a moment that touched my heart, challenged my beliefs, and changed the way I see the world. It all began when I traveled to Palestine, a place with a history so rich, yet so full of struggle. A place that is not just a dot on a map, but a symbol of resilience, of survival, and of a people who have held on to their identity despite years of hardship. Now, like many, I had heard about Palestine through the news, read about it in articles, but nothing could have prepared me for what I experienced when I set foot there. The air in Palestine feels different. It holds stories, it holds dreams, and it holds pain. And as I walked through its streets, visited its cities, and met its people, something began to stir within me, a deep sense of empathy, a deep sense of connection. I walked through the old streets of Jerusalem, stood at the Western Wall, and felt the weight of centuries of faith and history. But it was not just the places that affected me, it was the people. I met people whose lives had been marked by hardship, yet their eyes gleamed with hope. Their faith was not just something they believed in, it was something they lived. It was a force that guided them, that gave them strength to face every challenge. It was then that I realized how powerful faith can be. It wasn't about a ritual, a practice, or even a tradition. It was about peace, the kind of peace that comes from within, the kind that anchors you no matter what life throws your way. It was about surrendering not to the world around you, but to the divine. I remember meeting a young woman who told me about her journey with faith. She spoke of the peace she found in Islam, a peace that didn't come from external circumstances, but from the deep connection she felt with her Creator. It wasn't a peace that promised an easy life. It was a peace that gave her the strength to face the difficult days ahead. In that moment, something inside me clicked. I realized that my search for meaning, for peace, was not over. I had spent so much time looking for it in the wrong places. What I saw in Palestine was a living, breathing testament to what true faith can do. It gave me the courage to ask myself, what if the peace I've been searching for has been right in front of me all along? When I returned home, I couldn't shake the feeling. The words of the Qur'an, the teachings of Islam, echoed in my mind and heart. I felt a pull, an undeniable sense of truth that I could not ignore. I realized that Islam wasn't just a religion, it was a way of life. It wasn't just about belief, it was about submission to peace, to surrendering to something greater than myself, and in doing so, finding true freedom. I became Muslim not because of a sudden epiphany or a moment of conversion, but because I had found a connection, a deep spiritual connection that resonated with the very core of who I am. It was not about changing who I was. It was about embracing the peace that had always been there, waiting for me to see it. So, why did I become Muslim after visiting Palestine? Because I found a truth that I could not deny. I found peace not in a place, but in a belief that transformed the way I see myself and the world around me. I found a peace that connects me to something greater, that anchors me in the midst of chaos. And I found a faith that doesn't just promise a better world, but teaches me how to build it, how to live it every single day. This is my story, my journey. It's a reminder that sometimes the most profound changes in our lives come when we least expect them. But they also come when we are open to something greater than ourselves, when we are open to the truth wherever it may lead. During my visit to Palestine, one of the most profound realizations I had was the power of faith and the peace that it brings. It's one thing to read about faith, to hear others talk about it, and quite another to witness it in action. I had heard about the resilience of the Palestinian people, their ability to endure hardship, and the unyielding spirit that carried them through times of struggle. But when I saw it firsthand, I was struck by the depth of their peace, a peace that was not tied to the external world, but to something far deeper, something spiritual. The people of Palestine taught me that true peace comes not from what surrounds us, but from the faith and conviction within us. As I wandered through the ancient streets of Jerusalem and visited the holy sites, I noticed how faith shaped the lives of the people I met. It wasn't just about religion in the way we often think of it, something you practice on Sundays or a set of rituals you perform. It was about a way of life. It was about something that anchored them, that gave them the strength to face the daily challenges they endured. And it wasn't just about surviving. It was about thriving in the face of adversity, about finding peace even when the world seemed determined to rob them of it. I spoke with several individuals, from young students to elderly men and women, all of whom shared similar sentiments. They told me that their faith was not something that simply provided them comfort during hard times. It was something that shaped how they saw the world, how they interacted with others, and how they made sense of the injustice they experienced. Faith was not just a refuge, it was a source of power. It allowed them to rise above the circumstances they were given, to keep moving forward despite the odds. One of the things that struck me the most was how this peace was not a temporary escape, a fleeting moment of calm in a storm. It wasn't something that could be easily shaken or taken away by external forces. It was rooted in their hearts. It came from a place much deeper than circumstances. This peace was tied to their connection with God, their Creator. Their faith provided them with a sense of security, even when everything around them was uncertain. I watched as they practiced their faith not just during moments of prayer, but in their actions, in how they treated one another, in how they maintained hope despite the overwhelming challenges they faced. This was the moment when I truly understood the concept of inner peace. I had always thought of peace as something that could be achieved through external factors, by creating a safe environment, by having things go the way I wanted them to, or by escaping from life's difficulties. But what I saw in Palestine was something different. I saw peace that was not dependent on what was happening in the world around you. It was a peace that came from surrendering to something greater than yourself, something divine that guided you through the chaos. In the midst of suffering, I saw smiles. I saw families gathered around dinner tables, sharing laughter despite their challenges. I saw people sitting together in solidarity, offering strength to one another and offering prayers for peace, not just for themselves, but for the world. This was faith in action. It wasn't about avoiding pain or pretending that everything was perfect. It was about accepting the reality of life, both the good and the bad, and finding peace in that acceptance. I remember speaking with a young woman who shared her experiences growing up in a refugee camp. Despite the hardships she had faced, despite the constant challenges, her eyes were filled with hope. She spoke about how her faith had been the one constant in her life. When the world seemed to be falling apart around her, her belief in God had provided her with a sense of purpose, a sense of security that nothing else could give. She told me that every day was a struggle, but it was her faith that gave her the strength to keep going. Without faith, she said, I would have nothing. It's what keeps me going. It's what gives me peace. What struck me the most was how calm and collected she was, even in the face of so much turmoil. She had a quiet confidence that came from knowing she was not alone, that she was part of something much greater than herself. Her peace wasn't about avoiding the storm. It was about having the courage to walk through it with faith and trust that something greater would see her through. This is the kind of peace I began to understand in Palestine, one that is not rooted in the absence of conflict, but in the presence of faith. It's a peace that does not promise an easy life, but a life that can be lived with dignity, grace, and strength, no matter the circumstances. I had always thought that peace was a luxury, something that you could only experience if everything in your life was in order. But in Palestine, I learned that peace is a choice. It's a decision to trust in something greater than yourself, to surrender to the will of God, and to find solace in the knowledge that you are not alone, no matter how difficult life becomes. The people I met in Palestine taught me that true peace comes from within, from faith in something beyond the material world. It's a peace that isn't dependent on external validation or the circumstances of the moment. It's a peace that transcends the noise and chaos of life and allows you to move forward with a sense of purpose and conviction. I saw in the eyes of the people I met that kind of peace, and it was something I had been searching for without even realizing it. And so, as I left Palestine, I carried with me not just memories of the beautiful landscapes and the rich history, but also a new understanding of peace, a peace that comes not from the world around you, but from the connection you have with the divine, and from the faith that sustains you through it all. As I stood in the streets of Palestine, I couldn't help but feel a deep, spiritual connection to the place, a bond that went beyond the physical realm of what I could see and touch. It was an emotional and transformative moment, where I realized that the peace I had been searching for in my life was never going to come from external circumstances. Instead, it was something that could only be found through faith, a belief in something greater than myself. This epiphany didn't happen all at once, but as I walked through the old, narrow streets of Jerusalem, visited the sacred sites, and spoke with the people, the truth began to unfold before me. The more I engaged with the land and its people, the more I understood that peace doesn't come from the world around you. It comes from your connection with the divine, with the Creator. I think many of us go through life thinking that peace can only be found in certain conditions. We associate peace with comfort, success, or tranquility. We think that once we achieve a certain goal, secure a certain position, or find external happiness, then we'll finally be at peace. But in Palestine, I encountered a peace that defied these conventional ideas. It wasn't tied to a perfect life or ideal circumstances. Instead, it was rooted in faith, and it had an undeniable strength to it. This peace wasn't something that could be disrupted by external forces, no matter how harsh or challenging life became. One of the most profound things I learned in Palestine was the ability to remain calm in the face of adversity. The people there have lived through unimaginable hardships, but their faith has given them a strength and resilience that I found awe-inspiring. I spoke with individuals who had lost family members, homes, and possessions to the endless cycles of conflict and displacement. Yet, despite all of this, there was a calmness about them, an inner peace that radiated from within. I remember speaking to a young man who had grown up under occupation. When I asked him about the difficulties he had faced, he didn't focus on the anger or the injustice. Instead, he spoke about the importance of finding inner peace through faith, about how his connection to God had provided him with a sense of strength that no external force could ever take away. It was in conversations like these that I realized what true peace is. It's not about avoiding the storms in life, but about how you navigate through them. The people of Palestine demonstrated that peace isn't about having control over everything. It's about surrendering to something greater, trusting that you are not alone in the midst of trials. This kind of peace doesn't make the hardships disappear, but it gives you the strength to endure them. It's not about escaping the struggle. It's about facing it with grace and patience, knowing that there is a higher purpose and a higher power guiding you through. As I reflected on this, I couldn't help but think about how disconnected I had been from this concept of peace in my own life. I had always believed that peace was something that would come when everything was in order, when I had achieved certain goals, when I had the right job, or when things were calm and predictable. But what I saw in Palestine was the exact opposite. The people didn't wait for the circumstances to be perfect. They found peace in the midst of their struggles, not because they had everything figured out, but because they had a deep, unwavering faith that gave them a sense of purpose and direction. Their faith was the foundation of their peace, and it was a peace that could not be shaken by the storms of life. This understanding of peace challenged everything I had known before. I realized that my search for peace had been focused on the wrong things. I had spent so much of my life seeking external sources of validation and comfort, thinking that once I had them, I would finally feel at peace. But in Palestine, I saw that true peace isn't something you find outside yourself. It's something you cultivate within. It's not about controlling the world around you, but about surrendering to the greater wisdom of the divine and trusting that everything will unfold as it should. This lesson was not just about finding peace in the abstract, but about embodying it in everyday life. It was about seeing the world through a lens of faith, of trusting that even in the darkest moments, there is always light. I realized that peace comes from how we respond to life's challenges, not from avoiding them or controlling them. It's about learning to accept things as they are, and finding strength in knowing that we are not alone in our struggles. I began to reflect on how I had been living my own life. I saw how much of my peace had been contingent on external factors, on success, on approval, on control. But when those things were no longer in my grasp, I found myself feeling lost and disconnected. What the people of Palestine showed me was that peace isn't about holding on to things that are fleeting. It's about finding contentment in the present moment, in the faith that no matter what happens, you will be okay. This was the peace I had been searching for all along, the peace that comes from within. The people I met in Palestine didn't just speak about their faith, they lived it. Their faith wasn't a passive belief. It was a living, breathing force that guided them through every aspect of their lives. It was a faith that inspired them to face adversity with strength, to show compassion in the face of suffering, and to hold on to hope even when it seemed like there was no reason to. This was the peace that I wanted to embody in my own life, a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, but comes from a deep, spiritual connection to the divine. As I left Palestine and returned to my everyday life, I carried with me not just the memories of the beautiful landscapes and the rich history, but a new understanding of what peace truly is. I had learned that peace isn't a destination you reach after everything else falls into place. It's a journey of surrender, trust, and connection to something greater than yourself. It's a journey that begins with faith and leads you to the most profound peace you could ever experience. Before I visited Palestine, I thought I had a solid sense of identity. I thought I knew who I was and what I stood for, but something unexpected happened during that trip. I didn't just experience a new culture or witness a historical landscape. I underwent a transformation. And the most surprising part of it all was that it wasn't a transformation of becoming someone new. Instead, it felt like I was finally becoming who I truly was all along. My decision to embrace Islam wasn't a rejection of my past, but a realization of something that had always been quietly calling me from within. In Palestine, everything I saw, everything I felt, had a kind of spiritual clarity to it. There was something undeniable in the way people moved through their lives with purpose and surrender. I had so many deep conversations with ordinary people who showed extraordinary grace. I met a taxi driver who told me about his life under occupation, how every day came with uncertainty, but he always ended his stories with Alhamdulillah, which means praise be to God. That single phrase captured something powerful. It was a declaration of peace, of trust, of contentment, no matter the outcome. I kept hearing it from shopkeepers, from mothers, from teenagers, people who had every reason to be angry, bitter, or hopeless. And yet they were grounded, calm, grateful. That energy was magnetic. I wanted to know what gave them that strength, and as I sat in mosques, watched the faithful line up in prayer, and listened to the call to prayer echoing through ancient stone walls, something stirred in me. It wasn't just curiosity, it was connection. I felt as if I had found something I had been searching for without knowing what it was. It wasn't about adopting a new religion for the sake of change or out of admiration alone. It was about truth, a kind of truth that hits you in the heart and refuses to leave, a truth that feels like home. In Islam, I found a system of belief that didn't ask me to be perfect, but asked me to be sincere. It didn't offer me escape, but rather a path, one grounded in mercy, purpose, and surrender. That's what changed me. I didn't become Muslim because I wanted to fit in or follow a trend. I became Muslim because, for the first time in my life, I felt a complete alignment between my soul and my actions. I found peace in prayer, comfort in the Qur'an, and clarity in the teachings of the Prophet, Muhammad, peace be upon him. It wasn't a leap, it was a return to the self that had always been seeking something deeper, something more real than the noise and distractions of everyday life. One of the most profound realizations I had during this process was that Islam didn't erase who I was, it illuminated it. My values, compassion, justice, patience, love, they weren't new, but in Islam they found direction, they found structure. I didn't have to give up my personality or my past. I simply had to allow my heart to open to something bigger. I wasn't changing myself. I was finally allowing myself to be seen, to be led, to be guided by a faith that felt like truth in its purest form. Conversion is often misunderstood. People assume it's about abandoning who you were. But for me, it was the opposite. It was about becoming more authentic, more grounded, more aligned with a purpose that extended beyond me. Islam taught me that life isn't about control, it's about surrender. And that surrender isn't weakness, it's liberation. When I let go of the illusion that I had to have it all figured out, when I stopped needing to define everything by logic and control, I found space for peace. Real peace, the kind that sits in your chest and doesn't leave, no matter what chaos may come. There were tears in that journey, some from joy, some from struggle. There were doubts and fears too, because change, even when it feels right, is never easy. But what anchored me was how every time I reached out in prayer, I felt a calm that nothing else in my life had ever given me. It was like finally being heard, seen, loved, by the one who created me. That kind of connection changes you. It reshapes the way you look at the world, the way you treat others, and the way you carry yourself through life. I remember the day I took my Shahada, the declaration of faith. It was quiet, simple, no spotlight, no ceremony. Just words spoken from the heart, that there is no God but God, and Muhammad is his messenger. And with those words, something deep inside me shifted, not in a dramatic or flashy way. It was quiet, like a door softly opening. And on the other side was clarity, not certainty in everything, but trust in the journey. Trust in the one who knows what I don't. That transformation didn't make me perfect. It didn't solve all my problems. But it gave me the tools to walk through life with purpose. It gave me a mirror to reflect on who I was and who I could become. It gave me a path that I could walk, stumble, rise, and walk again, with the assurance that God's mercy would meet me each time. My journey to Islam after visiting Palestine wasn't the start of something entirely new. It was the uncovering of something that had always been there, waiting for the right time to bloom. And when it did, it felt like home. Not because everything became easy, but because everything finally made sense. Let them go and be happy alone, you know. There comes a time in your life when holding on does more harm than letting go. We spend so much of our energy trying to convince people to love us, to see our worth, to stay. We bend, we shrink, we explain, we chase. And still, some people just won't choose us. And here's the truth, that's okay, because not everyone is meant to walk with you for the whole journey. Some are only there for a season. Some are teachers in disguise, some were never meant to stay. They were just meant to show you something about yourself, and when they go, it's not your job to chase after them. Your job is to bless their path and continue walking yours. You have the right to protect your peace. You have the right to choose joy over chaos, growth over guilt, healing over history. And listen, being alone doesn't mean being empty. It means you finally have space. Space to breathe, space to rediscover who you are without the noise, space to dream again, to rebuild, to rise. So let them go. Let go of the need to be understood by people who were never meant to understand you. Let go of the love that felt like a war zone. Let go of the friendships that always left you drained. Let go of anyone who made you feel like you were too much or not enough. You are not too much. You are not enough. You are a whole, radiant, worthy soul just as you are. And sometimes being alone is the most sacred, powerful chapter of your life. So if someone walks away from you, hold the door open, wish them well, and then get busy becoming everything they didn't see in you. You don't need them to complete you. You were already whole. Not everyone is meant to stay. People come into your life for reasons, seasons, or lessons. Some are only temporary, and it's okay to release them without guilt. Letting go protects your peace. Holding on to unhealthy relationships drains your energy and blocks your growth. Letting go is a form of self-respect and healing. Alone doesn't mean lonely. Being alone is an opportunity to reconnect with yourself, rediscover your strength, and create space for joy, clarity, and purpose. You are already whole. Your worth isn't defined by who stays or leaves. You don't need others to complete you. You are already enough as you are. Would you like these points turned into slides or visuals for a presentation or video? You know, one of the hardest truths we ever have to face is this: not everyone is meant to stay. We live in a world that teaches us to hold on, to keep proving our value, to make things work. We're told that love means endurance, that friendship means loyalty no matter what, and that family is forever. So we carry people with us, sometimes far past their expiration date in our lives, because we've convinced ourselves that letting go means failure, that releasing someone is giving up. But I want to challenge that belief today. Letting go is not weakness, it is wisdom. Not everyone who comes into your life is meant to walk with you all the way to the end. Some people are simply passing through. They are messengers, mirrors, lessons wrapped in the disguise of love, attraction, loyalty, or shared history. And when their purpose in your life is done, the relationship begins to shift. Sometimes it's subtle, a distance, a disconnect, a change in energy. Other times it's dramatic. An argument, a betrayal, a sudden silence. But either way, the truth is revealed. They're not meant to stay, and that's not something to grieve. It's something to understand. Because here's the reality: you are growing, you are evolving. You are not the same person you were a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And if you're truly on a journey of becoming, of healing, of rising, of stepping into your purpose, then some relationships will simply not fit anymore. They belonged to a version of you that no longer exists, and trying to drag those people with you into your next chapter only delays your growth, only prolongs the pain. We often cling to people out of habit, or fear, or the memory of who they once were to us. But we've been friends since high school. But he was there for me during that hard time. But she's family, and those things may all be true. They might have loved you deeply. They might have shown up for you once. They might still mean well. But if the relationship is now filled with tension, misunderstanding, neglect, or pain, if you feel like you have to shrink yourself to stay connected, then it is no longer love. It is obligation. And life is too short to live in relationships that require you to abandon yourself. I want you to understand something deeply today. It is not your job to carry people who refuse to walk. It is not your job to save people who don't want to change. And it is not your job to keep sacrificing your peace so that someone else can be comfortable in your presence. Your growth will make people uncomfortable. Your healing will make people defensive. Your evolution might be a threat to those who benefit from your wounds. And when that happens, when someone starts pulling away, shutting down, or choosing to walk out of your life, let them. Let them go, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with grace. Because if they were meant to be part of your next level, they would align with your growth, not resist it. If they were meant to be in your future, they would meet you in your becoming, not ask you to stay small. Sometimes letting someone go is the most loving thing you can do, not just for you, but for them. When you release someone, you give both of you the freedom to find what truly fits. You free yourself to attract relationships rooted in mutual respect, depth, and growth. And you free them to discover their own journey separate from yours. And listen, don't confuse letting go with hatred. You don't have to turn cold or hard. You can let go and still love someone from a distance. You can let go and still wish them healing. You can let go and still honor the role they played in your story. Letting go doesn't mean erasing the memories or pretending it never mattered. It means you recognize that the chapter is over and you are brave enough to put the book down. There is strength in that kind of release, a quiet strength, a sacred strength. Because when you finally stop holding on to people who no longer serve your journey, you begin to notice something powerful: peace, space, lightness, the ability to breathe again, the ability to pour into yourself. And that's when your real life begins to bloom. That's when you start attracting people who love you for who you are now, not who you used to be. People who don't need to be convinced of your worth. People who are aligned with your energy, your values, your vision. People who walk beside you, not behind you or against you. So yes, it might hurt at first. The empty space they leave might feel unbearable, but trust me, it's not the end. It's an invitation, an opening, a clearing for what's meant for you. Let them go, and trust that what's coming will honor the person you are becoming. There's a sacred kind of peace that comes when you stop fighting for a place in someone's life who doesn't know how to make room for you. You might not feel it right away. At first, it can feel like loss, like failure, like you've given up. But with time, with reflection, you realize something profound. You were never at peace when you were fighting to stay connected. You were anxious, you were drained, you were shrinking. You were editing your words, walking on eggshells, just trying to hold something together that was already falling apart. We glorify holding on. We're told that love is about loyalty, persistence, effort. And yes, love does require effort, but not suffering. Not sacrificing your sanity, not staying in spaces where you feel invisible, undervalued, or emotionally exhausted. There is a difference between growing through tough seasons with someone and being caught in a cycle that chips away at your spirit. The truth is, peace is expensive, and some people, some relationships, some dynamics, they are too costly, not in dollars, but in energy, in clarity, in self, worth, in sleep, in joy, and you have to start asking yourself, is holding on to this person, this connection, this constant back and forth, worth the price I keep paying? We don't ask that enough. Instead, we make excuses for the chaos. We justify the confusion. It's just a rough patch. Maybe I'm being too sensitive. They're going through something. And while compassion is beautiful, it should not be used to cover up pain. Compassion is not a reason to abandon yourself. When you stay in places that disturb your peace, you begin to normalize dysfunction. You begin to confuse anxiety with passion, inconsistency with intensity. You start believing that love must always be hard, that being close to someone always comes with emotional exhaustion. But I'm here to tell you that's not love. That's emotional survival. Real love feels safe. It feels like deep breaths and soft landings. It feels like being seen without having to perform. It feels like being able to exhale in someone's presence, not brace yourself. And the only way to make space for that kind of love is by letting go of what is not that. Protecting your peace sometimes means making the hard decision, the unpopular decision, the one that doesn't make sense to the outside world. People might not understand why you walked away. They might think you're being dramatic or selfish or cold, but they don't know what it cost you to stay. They weren't in your head when you replayed every conversation, trying to figure out if you were the problem. They weren't in your heart when it broke a little more each time you were dismissed, disrespected, or disregarded. So if you're waiting for permission to walk away from something that steals your peace, here it is. You're allowed to let go. You're allowed to choose quiet over conflict. You're allowed to choose calm over chaos. You're allowed to choose you. Choosing yourself is not betrayal. It's not abandonment. It's not giving up on love. It's returning home to your own soul, to your own needs, to your own truth. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away so you can finally breathe again. We talk a lot about chasing happiness, about becoming our best selves, but none of that can happen in environments that drain us. Growth doesn't happen when you're constantly in survival mode. Healing doesn't happen when you're constantly being triggered. You cannot build a beautiful life while constantly trying to patch up broken pieces of something that keeps hurting you. Letting go is not just about removing people. Sometimes it's about removing dynamics. Expectations, obligations that were never yours to carry. It's about setting boundaries that keep you aligned with your values and your worth. It's about creating a life where you wake up and your soul feels light, not heavy. And no, it's not always easy. There may be tears. There may be doubt. There may be moments when you question if you made the right choice. But in the stillness, when the noise quiets and the chaos fades, we'll feel something different. You'll feel peace returning, softly at first, then stronger. That's how you'll know. You'll start to sleep better, breathe deeper, smile more. You'll start to hear your own voice again, not just the voice of someone else telling you who to be. You'll feel yourself slowly coming back to life, and that's the gift of letting go. It's not just about losing someone. It's about finding yourself. When you protect your peace, you protect your power. You protect your presence. You show the world, and more importantly, yourself, that you are no longer available for anything that costs your soul its rest. So if you're standing at that edge, unsure whether to let go, ask yourself one simple question: do I feel peace here? And if the answer is no, then you already know what to do. There's a moment, after the letting go, after the goodbye, after the silence settles in, when it's just you, no texts, no calls, no distractions from someone else's drama or mood swings or needs. And at first, that silence can feel deafening, like loneliness, like emptiness, like abandonment. But let me tell you something that may just change how you see that moment. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. We confuse the two all the time, especially when we've been taught to believe our value comes from being connected to someone else. We were raised to believe that having someone by your side, whether it's a partner, a friend, a group, even a crowd, somehow validates our worth. That a quiet phone means we're not loved. That a solo dinner means we're unwanted. That an empty room means something is wrong with us. But that's a lie. Aloneness is not a punishment, it's a pause. A sacred, necessary pause where the most powerful things begin to happen. Not out there, but in here, inside you, because when you're finally alone, truly alone, you start to hear the voice that's been drowned out for too long, your own. That voice that used to whisper in between all the noise. It becomes clearer. You begin to feel your own rhythms again. You remember what you love, what you dream of, what brings you peace. Not because someone else told you, but because you feel it for yourself. That morning walk, that quiet coffee, that long shower where no one interrupts, that playlist that speaks to your soul, the sunlight on your skin without anyone else watching, these are not lonely moments. These are holy moments, moments of restoration, moments of remembering, because when you're always with others, especially those who don't truly see or value you, you begin to disappear, slowly, quietly. Piece by piece, you adjust, you contort, you mold yourself into versions that keep the peace or get approval. You start asking questions like, is this okay to say? Will they be mad if I don't respond? What if they leave if I show who I really am? But when you're alone, those questions fade, and in their place comes a beautiful, quiet certainty. You are enough. You begin to build a relationship with yourself, and it is the most important relationship you will ever have. Because here's the truth that no one teaches us growing up. You can't truly love anyone else until you know how to love yourself in your solitude, not in your performance, not in your productivity, not in your popularity, but in your stillness, in your quiet, in your unfiltered, unedited existence. That's where confidence is born, not in applause, but in the silence after. That's where worth is discovered, not when someone says, I choose you, but when you choose yourself. And when you start to fall in love with your own company, something magical happens. Your standards rise. You stop settling. You stop begging for breadcrumbs. You stop chasing people who can't see past their own reflection. Because you've tasted the sweetness of your own peace, and suddenly chaos becomes unattractive. You start to realize, if I can be happy on my own, then anyone who wants to come into my life better be adding to it, not subtracting from it. You begin to protect your energy like sacred ground. You begin to honor your space like it's holy, because it is. You begin to say no without guilt, to rest without shame, to dream without asking for permission. And yes, there might be lonely nights. There might be moments when you wish you had someone's hand to hold, someone to laugh with, someone to share that sunset. That's human. That's normal. but don't confuse that fleeting ache with a permanent truth. You are not empty. You are not alone because you're unworthy. You are alone because you are in a season of becoming, a season where your soul is expanding, where your heart is healing, where your vision is clearing. And you can't rush that process. You can't fill it with noise. You can't replace it with just anyone. You have to sit with yourself and trust that you are enough company, the right people, those who match your energy, respect your journey, and honor your growth. They will come. But they will not complete you, they will complement you, because by then you will already be whole. So don't run from the silence, don't fear the alone time, that solitude you're in. It's not the end of something. It's the beginning of everything. One of the most powerful truths I want to share with you today is this: you are already whole. In a world that often tells us we need to be fixed, that we need to be more, that we need to seek validation from outside ourselves, this truth might be hard to grasp. We are constantly fed messages that we are incomplete without someone, something, or some achievement. We are told that we need to earn our worth, that our value is conditional, that happiness is somewhere out there waiting for us to reach it. But I'm here to tell you something different. You don't need anyone or anything to complete you. You are not broken. You are not missing parts. You are already enough as you are, right here, right now. You don't need to keep chasing after something or someone to feel whole. You are not a puzzle waiting to be pieced together. You are not a blank slate waiting for someone to write your story. Your worth is not contingent on external approval or anyone's love. The belief that you need to be fixed often comes from the idea that you're not enough, that you're lacking something essential. We believe we need to change, to be more, to prove ourselves to the world. But this thinking only leads us down a path of constant striving, of never feeling like we've arrived. We give away our power to the external, and in the process, we forget to honor the beautiful, powerful truth that resides within us. You are already whole. Let that sink in for a moment. You are not less because of your past. You are not incomplete because of your mistakes, your setbacks, your heartbreaks. The pain you've experienced, the moments you've stumbled, those are not marks of your inadequacy. They are the chapters of your story that have shaped you into who you are today. The truth is, growth doesn't mean becoming someone else. It means becoming more of who you already are. It's about uncovering the truth of your essence, shedding the layers that don't serve you, and stepping into the fullness of your being. When you know that you are already whole, you stop looking for others to fill the spaces within you. Instead, you begin to look inward. You start to honor your emotions, your dreams, your needs, your boundaries, because you realize they matter, not because anyone else tells you they do, but because you know they do. When you truly accept that you are whole, the need for external validation fades. You no longer feel like you have to chase after approval, recognition, or love, because, my friend, you are the approval you've been seeking. You are the validation you've been waiting for. You are the love you have been longing for. This doesn't mean you won't seek meaningful relationships, or that you won't want to share your life with someone who sees and appreciates you. But it does mean you no longer feel desperate for it. You stop placing your worth in the hands of someone else. You no longer wait for someone to complete you. Instead, you create relationships based on mutual respect, shared values, and a recognition of each other's wholeness. You no longer settle for anything less than what you deserve, because you know you deserve the best, simply because you are already whole. And here's the beauty of this truth. When you fully embrace that you are whole, you give others permission to do the same. You stop competing, you stop comparing, and you start celebrating the fullness in others. You start creating an energy of abundance, not scarcity. You recognize that there is more than enough love, peace, success, and joy to go around. You begin to release the need to fix people or situations because you realize that everyone has their own journey. Everyone is already whole, even if they don't know it yet. And by honoring your own wholeness, you help them see theirs. When you embrace your wholeness, you stop waiting for the perfect moment to start living. You stop putting off your happiness for tomorrow or for when you have the right job, the right partner, the right house. Instead, you embrace who you are today. You begin to live in the present moment, recognizing that you don't need a perfect future to feel worthy. You don't need a perfect relationship to feel loved. You don't need a perfect career to feel successful. You are already enough, and the only thing standing between you and the life you desire is the belief that you are not. So stop waiting for something or someone to complete you. The completion you are searching for is already inside you. The love you seek is already yours. The peace you long for is already waiting to be embraced. The power to create the life you desire is already within your reach. The truth is, you are not the sum of what you have or who loves you. You are the sum of everything you have overcome, everything you've learned, and everything you've grown into. You are a beautiful, multifaceted, and powerful being, complete as you are. And when you live from this place of wholeness, everything shifts. Your relationships shift, your work shifts, your entire energy field shifts, because now you're not seeking to fill a void. You're living from abundance, and that, my friend, is the most powerful way to live. So if you ever feel like you're not enough, or like you need to be fixed, remind yourself of this truth. You are already whole. You are not missing anything. You are already everything you need to be. What's wrong with kindness? Isn't it what we should all strive for? Absolutely. But when kindness tips over into people pleasing, when we start saying yes to every request, every favor, every demand, we start to lose ourselves in the process. And more importantly, we start to lose our power. You see, the workplace is a place where decisions are made, goals are pursued, and opportunities are seized. It's about leadership, influence, and yes, sometimes making tough decisions. If you're always putting others' needs ahead of your own, if you're too afraid to say no or express your true feelings because you don't want to disappoint anyone, you're not leading your career. You're letting others lead it for you. Being too nice can cause you to overextend yourself. You can end up taking on projects or responsibilities that drain your energy or hold you back from your real priorities. You'll be so busy trying to please everyone, you'll forget about what truly fulfills you. This isn't just about a lack of balance, it's about a lack of boundaries. Without boundaries, you'll find it harder to advance because you're constantly accommodating everyone else's needs instead of focusing on your own growth and success. And let's talk about something else: confidence. When you're overly nice, it can sometimes come across as a lack of self-assurance. People may start to overlook your talents and ideas because they see you as someone who just wants to keep the peace. And trust me, you're not here just to keep the peace. You're here to make an impact. When you shy away from standing up for yourself or asserting your ideas, others may not see you as someone to take seriously. Now, I'm not saying you should abandon kindness altogether. Far from it. What I'm advocating for is a new kind of strength, a strength that knows when to say yes and when to say no, a strength that communicates your worth without apology, a strength that sets boundaries not just with others, but with yourself. And here's the real secret. When you start embracing your true power, when you start prioritizing your needs and goals, you'll attract the respect and recognition you deserve. Being nice is important, but being *too* nice can leave you sidelined. stuck in roles that don't challenge you or push you forward. So, let's take a moment to redefine what success looks like for us. It's not about always saying yes. It's about finding that balance where you can still be kind, but you're also unapologetically owning your space, your voice, and your future. Remember, you have everything you need to be a leader in your own life. And that means understanding that kindness doesn't have to mean sacrificing your success. Stand up, speak your truth, and give yourself permission to take up space, because you deserve it. Being too nice can be one of the most insidious things that hold back your career. You might think it's a virtue, something that makes you approachable, compassionate, and beloved by others. However, if you're constantly putting other people's needs above your own, you can inadvertently create obstacles for yourself that prevent you from achieving your true potential. The truth is, when you're too nice, it can be easy to lose sight of your own goals, and even harder to take ownership of your career trajectory. First, let's examine how the people-pleasing nature of being too nice shows up in the workplace. Every day, we're asked to take on new tasks, assist colleagues, or attend meetings that might not align with our personal or professional goals. When you're driven by the desire to be liked and helpful, it's easy to say yes to these requests, even when they don't benefit you or advance your career. Over time, this habit of overcommitting can leave you feeling overwhelmed and stretched thin, as you try to juggle your existing responsibilities with new tasks that aren't in line with your priorities. At first, saying yes to everything might feel like a way to build relationships, show your team spirit, or gain approval from your boss. But what happens when you're too kind, too generous, and too willing to help? Eventually, you find yourself unable to focus on the work that truly matters to your professional development. The more you stretch yourself, the less energy you have to pour into your own goals and aspirations. Instead of climbing the ladder in your career, you're stuck in a cycle of reacting to everyone else's demands. You may feel proud for being helpful and supportive, but in reality, you're sabotaging your own progress. There's a deeper issue here, one that goes beyond simply being overextended. When you're constantly accommodating others, you may start to lose your voice, your vision, and your direction. You end up giving so much of yourself to others that you forget to take care of your own needs. Your boundaries blur, and before you know it, you're caught in a cycle of seeking validation through your actions rather than through the strength of your ideas, your work, and your vision. In a world that rewards initiative, creativity, and assertiveness, this can be a career killer. You stop asserting yourself in meetings, you shy away from sharing your ideas, and you hesitate to speak up when opportunities arise. You're not showing up as your full self, and that's where the trouble begins. The impact on your career doesn't stop there. When you're too nice, people may begin to take advantage of your helpful nature. Colleagues may start expecting you to take on tasks that are outside of your role or that they should be handling themselves. They might know that you'll always say yes, so they begin to rely on you more than they should. Over time, this can create a dynamic where you're seen as the go-to person for everything but the work that truly defines your career path. When you're stuck handling everyone else's priorities, you're never able to focus on your own. It's easy to slip into a cycle where your contributions are underappreciated or even unnoticed because they're scattered across multiple tasks that don't align with your core strengths or career goals. Meanwhile, others who are more assertive or focused on their own agendas begin to gain visibility and recognition. The worst part, You may become frustrated and resentful without even realizing it. When you're so focused on keeping the peace and being everyone's favorite colleague, it's easy to ignore your own unmet needs. This can manifest as passive, aggressive behavior, burnout, or simply feeling unfulfilled in your work. You might begin to resent those who take advantage of your kindness, but because you've set a precedent of being the nice one. It can be difficult to break free from these patterns. Your desire to be liked or to avoid conflict has created a barrier between you and the career success you deserve. Moreover, when you're too nice, people can begin to perceive you as lacking the confidence to assert yourself. They might interpret your constant desire to please as a sign of weakness. Unfortunately, in many professional environments, assertiveness is seen as a sign of leadership potential, and passivity is seen as a lack of ambition or conviction. If you're always deferring to others, being agreeable, and going along with the flow, people may not view you as someone who can make tough decisions or take charge when the situation calls for it. They might not see you as someone capable of leading teams or projects, and this lack of visibility can seriously stunt your professional growth. This, of course, is not to say that being kind is a weakness, quite the opposite. Kindness, when it's genuine and well balanced, is a strength. But there's a fine line between being kind and being so agreeable that you sacrifice your own needs. In fact, kindness can coexist with boundaries, with assertiveness, and with leadership. The trick is to recognize when being too nice is hindering your ability to take control of your career and to know when to say no. It's about prioritizing yourself without feeling guilty. It's about recognizing that sometimes you have to make tough decisions for your own well-being and career success. Being kind does not mean being a doormat. You don't have to sacrifice your vision or your boundaries in order to be liked. In fact, once you start asserting yourself and standing up for your own needs, you'll find that people will respect you even more. They'll admire your confidence and your ability to set clear boundaries. You'll become someone who isn't afraid to speak up, someone who knows what they want and is willing to go after it. This shift in mindset and behavior can completely transform the way you are perceived in the workplace and help you chart a course toward the career success you deserve. Ultimately, being too nice is a trap. It might feel good in the moment to please others and keep the peace, but in the long run, it can derail your career. It's essential to find the balance between being kind and being assertive, between helping others and helping yourself. Only then can you truly rise to your fullest potential and achieve the success you've been working toward. When you're in the workplace, there's this pressure, whether from your peers, superiors, or even society at large, that constantly encourages you to be kind, accommodating, and always ready to help. These are all wonderful qualities to have, and being compassionate and thoughtful are values that can enrich any environment. But there's a risk that comes with too much kindness. When being nice turns into people pleasing, when you begin to prioritize everyone else's needs before your own, you run the danger of losing your focus, your purpose, and ultimately your career trajectory. The issue with being too nice starts when you begin to overcommit. It's easy to fall into the trap of constantly saying yes to requests from colleagues, even when those requests don't align with your responsibilities or goals. This is especially true when you don't want to disappoint anyone or cause any friction. In the short term, it might seem like you're doing the right thing. You're supporting your team, contributing to projects, and making yourself indispensable. But in reality, overextending yourself can quickly backfire. By saying yes to every request, you spread yourself thin, taking on more than you can handle. This not only leads to physical and mental exhaustion, but also leaves you with less time to focus on your primary responsibilities or long-term objectives. For example, instead of dedicating time to a major project that could push your career forward, you might find yourself stuck working on smaller tasks or tasks that aren't part of your core duties. You may spend time helping others with their problems, meeting deadlines that aren't your own, or attending unnecessary meetings, all of which detracts from your ability to achieve the kind of success that aligns with your aspirations. As your to-do list grows longer, the quality of your work begins to slip, or you may begin to feel overwhelmed. This is not only damaging to your well-being, but also harmful to your career. In a professional setting, quality is often more important than quantity. If you're constantly filling your plate with others' work, you lose the opportunity to deliver your best results on the tasks that matter most for your advancement. When you're so busy trying to please everyone else, you're not giving yourself the time and space to really focus on growing your own skill set or pursuing higher-level goals. This is where career stagnation begins. What's worse, when you're too nice, others may start to take advantage of your helpful nature. It's subtle at first. Perhaps a colleague asks for a little extra assistance, or your boss gives you an additional task. But once people realize that you're someone who will always say yes, they start to rely on you more and more. Eventually, it becomes the default assumption that you will always be the one to take on more work or handle extra duties. And as time passes, your role may evolve into that of a support person, someone who's always available but never given the recognition or opportunities for advancement that come with more challenging or visible projects. This dynamic can be frustrating. You might find yourself working harder than others, yet not receiving the credit or opportunities that you deserve. While your colleagues who assert themselves are moving forward, you're stuck in a loop of doing the busy work without recognition. This isn't just about missing out on promotions. It's about missing out on the chance to grow professionally. You're not given the opportunities to shine, showcase your strengths, or develop your leadership abilities. Over time, it can lead to feelings of resentment and frustration as you realize that your kindness is preventing you from getting ahead. At the same time, there's another problem that arises when you're constantly concerned about keeping others happy. It starts to affect how you're perceived in the workplace. People may begin to see you as someone who is too agreeable or too passive, someone who doesn't have the confidence to assert themselves. This perception is particularly dangerous in environments where assertiveness, leadership, and decisiveness are highly valued. If you're constantly saying yes, going along with others, and avoiding conflict, it's easy for people to overlook your potential for leadership, or to assume that you lack the strength to make tough decisions. In professional environments, the ability to make clear, assertive choices is often what distinguishes leaders from followers. Being too nice can undermine this perception of you. People might not take your ideas seriously, or worse, they might start questioning your ability to handle more responsibility because they view you as someone who is too focused on pleasing others. Leadership isn't about being liked. It's about being respected, making decisions with confidence, and guiding a team toward shared goals. If you're always worried about saying yes or avoiding conflict, you'll never have the opportunity to truly lead. But this is where it gets tricky, because, of course, being nice isn't a bad thing. In fact, in many ways, kindness is essential to building strong relationships in the workplace and cultivating a positive environment. But there's a fine line between being kind and being overly accommodating. What's important is recognizing that kindness doesn't have to come at the expense of your boundaries or your career goals. You can be supportive and still prioritize your own needs. You can help others, but you can also say no when you need to. Setting boundaries is crucial. Saying no isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of self-respect and maturity. It's about understanding that your time, your energy, and your focus are valuable, and they should be used wisely. The more you practice saying no and setting clear boundaries, the more you'll be able to manage your workload in a way that benefits your career. Instead of spreading yourself too thin, you'll start to invest in the projects and relationships that truly matter, and you'll become more effective in all areas of your work. In the end, your career should be about you, about your growth, your goals, and your ambitions. You can be kind and empathetic without compromising your progress or your values. So, instead of being too nice, learn to balance your kindness with confidence, assertiveness, and a clear sense of purpose. Your career will thank you for it. One of the biggest misconceptions about kindness in the workplace is the belief that it must come without boundaries, that if you're a good person, a kind colleague, or a team player, then you must always be available, always agreeable, and always accommodating. But that's not true kindness. That's self-sacrifice disguised as virtue. The truth is, real kindness includes self-respect. It includes the ability to say no, to set limits, and to protect your time and energy so that you can perform at your best. When you don't create these boundaries, being nice stops being a strength and starts becoming a liability. Many people confuse being nice with being passive. They think the way to maintain harmony is to never rock the boat, never say no, and never challenge the status quo. And at first, that might seem to work. You avoid confrontation, you avoid criticism, and you maintain a pleasant relationship with everyone around you. But what you lose in that process is your own voice. You lose your agency. You begin to make decisions based on what will keep others happy rather than what will help you grow, learn, and succeed. This often shows up in the form of chronic overcommitment. You don't want to disappoint your boss, so you take on another project. You don't want to seem unhelpful to your coworker, so you stay late to fix their mistake. You don't want to look selfish, so you agree to things that eat into your personal time, your focus, and your well-being. Each time you say yes when you should say no, you reinforce a pattern where your needs are secondary. Over time, this becomes an expectation, not just from others, but from yourself. You start believing that in order to be seen as good or valuable, you must always be available. And that's not sustainable. Eventually, that kind of behavior leads to burnout. You're doing everything for everyone else, but you're running on empty. You're tired, you're frustrated, and you're beginning to feel invisible. Because the irony of always being available, always helping, and always saying yes is that people start to take it for granted. They stop seeing it as a favor or a strength, and instead they start to expect it. They don't notice your sacrifices anymore. They just assume you'll keep showing up no matter how much it costs you. That's when resentment begins to build, not just toward others, but toward yourself, because deep down, you know you've allowed this to happen. But it doesn't have to be that way. Setting boundaries is not about being cold or uncaring. It's about being intentional. It's about deciding where your time and energy are best spent and being clear about your priorities. When you start setting boundaries, you're not only protecting yourself, you're also teaching people how to treat you. You're letting them know that your time is valuable, that your work matters, and that you're not someone who can be endlessly stretched thin. You also begin to reclaim your power. When you draw a line and say, I can't take this on right now, or that's outside the scope of my responsibilities. You're asserting your voice. You're showing others that you have direction, clarity, and purpose. And that's where respect starts to grow. Because people don't respect you for how much you give. They respect you for how confidently you lead, how well you manage your time, and how clear you are about your worth. That kind of clarity opens doors. When you protect your time, you can finally focus on the work that matters, the projects that challenge you, the opportunities that stretch you, and the goals that align with your long-term vision. You're no longer reacting to everyone else's needs. You're actively creating a path for your own growth. You're no longer just a helpful hand in the background. You become someone who's seen as focused, driven, and capable of leadership. And here's the thing, kindness doesn't disappear when you set boundaries. In fact, it becomes more powerful because now it's a choice, not a habit. It's not driven by guilt or fear. It's grounded in confidence and purpose. You can still be generous. You can still support your team, but you do it from a place of strength, not self-neglect. That kind of kindness, the kind that's balanced with self-respect, is what truly earns admiration and influence. People who rise in their careers aren't the ones who say yes to everything. They're the ones who know what to say yes to. They don't try to please everyone. They stay true to their goals and values while treating others with respect and empathy. They understand that you can't be everything to everyone and still have something left for yourself. So they make thoughtful decisions, they set healthy limits, and they show up fully when it counts. And that's what this is really about. Learning how to balance your empathy with boundaries, your generosity with goals, and your kindness with clarity. Because when you do, you're no longer held back by the fear of not being liked. You're fueled by the courage to be respected for your integrity, your focus, and your willingness to protect what matters most, your time, your voice, and your path.